Hello, my family. So today is canning day. Now, I'm just actually going to catch you up to this point because things did not work, so I'm not too far into it that I can't go back. Hang on a second. Alright, sorry about that, y'all. I had to take care of something really quick. This right here. Whoever sent me this at Christmas time, bless you. I read this and it said, I'll tell you what it said. It says, sometimes you forget you're awesome, so this is your reminder. Some days are better than others, and so this reminds me it's okay, and I got this. So let me change this just a little bit, y'all. Okay, I'm sorry about that. All right, so here's what we're doing. We are canning. We're canning chickpeas. Yes, training wheels. We're still working with them. 3 more weeks, y'all. 3 more weeks, and I get sized for my permanent. I'm told these are supposed to be better. At this point, I really hope so. So, anyways, I know there are several methods that people can dried beans. I'm going to teach you my method. Now, everybody has their kitchen, their rules. Same goes here. I stick with the ball canning preserving books. To me, it's safer. I have kept me and my husband very safe for the last 4 years that I've been canning, and I'm going to stick with it. So, where I'm at right now, I have 2 pounds of chickpeas that I am fixing to can. The first time I worked with them, we put them in the pot. We rinsing them off really, really well. I kept cleaning them and rinsing them until the water was crystal clear. They get dirty. I do not want that in my canning jars. So I washed them. Some people will soak these overnight. I don't. I do the pre-cook. And that's what we're doing right now. So after I washed them, I turned around and brought them, put the water back up 2 inches above the line of the peas, put them on my stove, boiled them for 2 minutes, took them off the heat, and then I let them sit for 1 hour. Now, the point where I'm at this moment is I took and drained them, rinsed them off again really well, filled them back up 2 inches above the line of the peas, and now I'm boiling them again. I'm going to bring them up to a boil, cover them, and bring them back down to a gentle boil for 30 minutes. At this time, this is when we're going to start canning them. This is on the Ball Blue Book Guide to Preserving. This is on page 111 under Beans or Peas Dried. Now, I am also at this point, I do not use the water that these peas have been cooked in, ever. I will have a separate pot of hot water. Now, everybody's going to ask me, is this a lot of work? Yes. But I have a good quality jar full of chickpeas when it comes to my hummus. I do not lose any flavor to my peas. They're always in my jar, and I still use that in my hummus. So I tend to have very clean jars and flavor. I do not salt mine either. I do all the salting and everything after the fact. Mine are nothing, just a dry pea that I can work with. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and we're going to set these up. They're coming up to their boiling point. In the meantime, I'm getting the pressure, y'all. I'm not doing anything but pressure canning. Now, some of you are seasons, you know all this, but we have a lot of new folks, and they've been asking me some questions, so I'm going to answer those questions. So give me 1 minute. Okay, so the question is, how do I can? Okay, the other question is, What is the cooker do I use? Do I use a pressure cooker? What do I use to can with? Folks, there are two types. There is a pressure canner, and then there's a pressure cooker. Both do their own thing. Each one has a purpose for itself. Now, there are electric canners out there. I don't have one. I don't know anything about that, so I cannot tell you what that does. I have the Presto dial canner. I have a pressure gauge on mine. I don't even have the rocker. That would be the All-American that does both pressure and rocker. So I don't have that one. I have the Presto. I find it very easy to work with. Every year I take the pressure gauge to my extension office. I have them test it, and if it's off, they will realign it for me. If it's too bad, I'll just order a new one because I can order parts for this. I've already had to order a new gasket, so it's not inexpensive. You can get them, and I can find my parts on Amazon. So pressure canner, pressure cooker. No, please, there are two things. Pay attention to what the box says. If it says pressure cooker, do not can in that. It is not meant for that. It doesn't build up enough pressure for canning for you. It's a totally different ball game. So I need to clear that up because some have really asked that question. So at this point, I'm waiting for my chickpeas to come to boil so I can boil them for 30 minutes. I'm going to set up another pot of hot water, clear hot water. I'm going to boil that because that's what I'm going to use to set up my jars. In the meantime, I'm going to fill up my pressure cooker, or my pressure canner, canner. I'm going to put 2 inches or 2 quarts of water at the bottom of my canner. And then I'm going to set my jars in there because I like to keep my jars warm, or actually hot. I will also, and I am using something new this year. I have been using ball canning lids, and I just decided this year I'm going to try 4 jars. So hold on a second. Sorry y'all, I forgot that thing was on. I usually do that. Anyways, I've been using the ball canning lids. These things are getting stupid high, y'all. I saved my jars. I have a good stock of jars to put back on my shelf this year, but I never reuse my lids, so I have to buy them every year. This year I decided to go ahead and try 4 jars. So we're going to try these. They are supposedly American made, and we're going to see how this works. If these work, I will definitely be getting some more of these because ball is getting unpredictable. I have, in the past 2 years, had to go back in my pantry, which I explained to you all, it's a good thing to do anyway. Go in, check your lids, because sometimes they come undone. And I've had a lot of ball lids do that lately, so that's the reason why I decided to change them. I'd watch Sutton Days, and everybody swears about these lids, so we're going to try them. So let me go ahead and finish getting ready for canning, because we have got chickpeas to put on that pantry, y'all. I need my hummus, and I prefer to have my hummus made this way. Here is 2 things that you can know that might help you. Yes, I know I heard that somebody had made hummus using chickpea powder. Y'all, that's going to require an awful lot of liquid. Number 2, there is a simple way of doing this. Now, I prefer the home canned chickpeas because basically they are softer. And I like that. It makes a very creamy base. But what people don't understand is that the texture, it's coming from the peel. There is a shell coating on the chickpeas. They're easy to get rid of, honestly. If you buy canned from the store, rub them between your hands, underwater or in water. Those shells, the film or whatever you call that, it will float to the top, y'all. So you can get rid of that. That is where the texture of not so smooth is coming from. It's not the pea itself. So when I can, mine, I can clean them and everything, and I can have it ready to just put in my processor. I have done this over and over, and I've had the most beautiful creamy hummus ever, hence the reason why I went through them so quickly. And I am actually doing a double batch, if not more, because I do use them. Also, I'm learning to be able to turn them into a crunchy snack. So, I mean, there's several things that I can do with them. There's also meals. I can add them to my salads and everything else. So, I am finding I'm enjoying chickpeas. Hence the reason, the beginning of this year, we are working with garbanzo beans. So, let me go ahead and start filling up my canner, get my pot, and watching my chickpeas while we are waiting for the 30-minute mark. Okay, y'all, so this video is going to be very extensive canning class, because there's a lot of things that are not covered, and I want to be very thorough as to the questions of why. So when you buy your canner, one thing you want to make sure is you have this plate at the bottom of it. You do not want to have your jars sitting on just the bottom of your canner directly on top of the heat. What will happen? You will bust every jar. There's too much friction against it with the heat surface. Hence the reason you need a tray on top of this. If you have the Presto and have not used it because you're afraid, trust me, I've done the same thing. One thing you will find that they have been changing the way these are made. Now, I don't have my pressure can or the dial gauge on here yet, but this little button right here, it's a little rubber button. This here is a safety button. They didn't used to have this many years ago. I watched a neighbor of mine. I became so terrified of these because they didn't have this back then, and I watched a neighbor get really hurt. So I get it, y'all. My husband bought me this, and for the first year, I put it up in the pantry, and I never touched it because I was so intimidated. Until a really good friend of mine, a mentor, grabbed a hold of me and said, nope, that's it. So, y'all, I'm going to do the same because I told her, for teaching me, I'm going to pass it on. So they came up with these safety buttons nowadays. This will pop before anything happens. So this is the lid. You want to make sure you have a good seal. This is a seal. It comes off of here. I have replaced my seal. If your seal does not work, you will absolutely know. Sometimes they will get too flimsy. They will not sit tight on top, and they'll stretch. Get rid of it, get a new one. You want to grease them too. It keeps them from cracking. If yours is so old that it is cracking, please replace your seal. Keep an eye on these. They're extremely important. So, inside this canner, and it's going to be hard for me to show you, but it has a line. An indentation line inside. It's going to be hard. Like I said, you can't really see it on this camera, but you can feel a ridge. That is a mark where it shows you do not go past that ridge when it comes to filling up your jars for pressure canning. Because if you end up going past this mark, that's why the instructions said 2 quarts, and that's all I add. If you go past, you are no longer pressure canning. You are now going to be water bath canning. So please know this. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and fill this up with my 2 quarts of water. Get my jars in here, good and cleaned. And we're going to turn this on and let this heat up while I'm waiting for my beans to start boiling. Okay, so I have 2 very full, this is my second one, very full quart jars, and I just slowly add this in here, making sure that I'm not passing my mark, what I need, and I'm not. So there's my 2 quarts. Now, I'm going to show you how I put my canning jars in here. This will cover 2 layers, and I'm going to show you that too. But I'm thinking I'm only going to have 1 layer, so we'll see what happens. But I'm going to go get my jars. I'm going to show you how I put them in here and heat them up in here. If you have very hot water, you can very much do that inside of a sink with hot water, because you are going to be pressure canning. But I do mine differently, and I will heat my lids, because I think that the rubber seal, once they're heated, sticks to the jar a lot better. I don't boil them, I just leave them warm. Okay, y'all, so I will make sure that my canning jars are clean. I will add a little bit of water in them to keep the weight down. That way I set them on top of my canner. This way I don't have them floating all over the place. So I will fill this up, and if I'm not mistaken, this thing holds 9 to 10 jars of pints in here. I'm just going to go ahead and fill this up, and we'll be right. I'll just show you how I'm doing this. Some may say this is overkill for me, but you know what? I've been doing this for 5 years, and it's really not that much more time. It takes time to can in the first place. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to be very cautious with this. I don't want to be careless. Okay, so far we got 3, 6, 7, 8. I'm thinking maybe. Let me see if I can get one more in here. Depending on the jar, this canner can hold anywhere from 18 to 20 jars. And yes, it will hold 10. So then there becomes a second layer. Oops, hang on a second. In case I need those jars, I'm going to show you the second layer right quick and what happens once you get your jars filled, and say you have more than you need. You got another layer. You got a nice tall one. These, unlike the water bath canning, with these jelly jars you can, or the smaller ones, but with pints and quarts you cannot do this. But for a pressure canner you can. But let me show you how to do that. Alright, I showed you the bottom plate that you want to make sure you have in this pot that these jars can rest on. But unfortunately, they don't come with the second one for a top layer. You can, however, order these on Amazon. I ordered a set, so I have an extra. And what I do is, once my jars are filled, and if I have more and I'm doing a double batch, I will take this, place this on top of my jars. Always make sure you have this on top, and then you can stack another set. You can do this with jelly jars, small jars, and pint jars. Quart jars will not work with this canner. Everything else does, and I've done it several times. So depending on the size of your jars and how they fit, 9 to 10 jars per section will work. So this will hold anywhere from 18 to 20 jars. Now to show you how I take care of my pressure gauge. When I went to the extension office last year, before I started a new year with this, that lady told me, she said she swore this was a brand new meter, that it was so spot on, and that I took very good care of it. Let me show you how I do that. Now, you just saw this box here. Every canning session, when I am done, this is what I do with my gauge, because this gauge is very, very important to get it right. If you do not get this right, botulism is very easy to put on your shelf. So I take care of this with everything inside of me. This is the rocker that goes on top. This is what stabilizes my pressure. And then this is my gauge. So overkill again, maybe. But I have this box, I have that box, and then I wrap mine in paper towel. Just like so. I'm very gentle with this gauge. So now I take it, the screws, I keep it on the bottom. I am going to have to get a new rubber seal for this though, because these eventually, see this right here, these will wear out too. But what I do is I'll turn it upside down. I will place this in the hole where it's at, making sure that that rubber seal goes inside of it. Well, you know, I'm going to take this out and do it from here. There we go. Like I said, I need to get a new one. I will line that up. I will put my gasket thing around it at the bottom, and then take the nut from there. This can be tricky to do this with one hand or two people or one person. Duh. Alright, so I'm just going to take it. I'm going to make sure it's on here snug and no air gets in here. And I also want to make sure that I'm not pinching my gasket. So now we're ready to go. This is how I store this every single time. I have been doing this for 6 years. I will wrap that bad boy like it's extremely fragile, because it is. And this is the reason why I got such a good report when they went and checked my pressure and said to keep up the great work, because these things are very, very sensitive. They will slip if treated poorly. So make sure it's spot on. You absolutely need this. Pressure. Now, here is some other information. Alright, yeah, I got some weird hair day today. Alright, so, altitude. Or, what do you call it now? Yeah, I guess the altitude. You want to make sure that your elevation, mine is 100 below sea level, 1,000 below sea level, which means when it comes to canning, it makes a difference. It absolutely makes a difference. And it is stated in this book. For me, my pressure canning on everything that I do is going to be set for 10 psi. Some people have a much higher elevation, which means you may have up to 15 and a longer time than I have to. So check that, please. You can find that online for your state, your area. What is your elevation? And please go by that in your canning book. Now for me, again, it's going to be 10 to 11 psi. And my canning session is going to take an hour and 15 minutes, which is 75 minutes to can chickpeas. So we're going to get into that, but that is also important. It's not just as cut and dry as following this book to a T, because you need to know all of this stuff, which is very important. Another thing you're going to find out is called a sweet spot. Well, what is your sweet spot? This is interesting. On a good day, my sweet spot on my stove, which is an electric stove, is set at 2. However, if it is cold, if it is raining, or if it's extremely hot and humid, my sweet spot changes always. We're going to get into this when it comes to pressure canning, unlike water bath canning, which is the reason why everybody wants to water bath can. Water bath canning is as easy as put your jars in the pot, bring it to a rolling boil, put your lid on it, set a timer, you're good to go. You can go do whatever you want to do, just make sure you're back before your timer. Pressure canning, you have to babysit. So, y'all, I'm going to tell you though, if you take the time to do this, I promise you, you will not regret it. You can so much more if you would learn to pressure can. But if you, for instance, your green beans require pressure canning. It does not make them mush, you all. It makes them just like you buy them at a grocery store if done properly. You cannot water bath can them. Again, I understand there's rebels. It's your kitchen, your rules, and you do what you want to do. This homestead will never water bath can my green beans because I do not want to take a risk of opening a jar to something I cannot taste, something I cannot smell, and something that's going to kill me and my husband just to enjoy a bean for that night, because I choose not to do it the way it was stated in the canning book. So again, you do what you want to do. This class, this homestead is going to teach you the way it's meant to be. And so I will go the extra mile to do what I have to do to protect us. It has kept us safe all this time, and I enjoy it. So we will be right back. Okay, y'all, so we have our beans now, our peas, boiling. I have now set them on the timer for 30 minutes. Once this is done, I will be pulling this off the burner. I will be taking and filling our jars with these. I will strain this just so you know, because I am currently also, but you can't see, let me see if I can raise this up here, y'all. I am also, here's our chickpeas. Here is our fresh water, which we are boiling to fill up our jars with. And then over here, I have my canning lids, and these are sitting in warm water. So everything is working on heating my jars. We are just about ready to start canning. Okay, my family, so another thing that we're going to be doing a lot of classes on this homestead. And I'm going to show you another one, which I'm going to start teaching you besides just canning. Some of you had asked me how to do sprouts and microgreens. I'm in the process of learning how to do this, and what I'm seeing is absolutely amazing. So I will be bringing this up with you as well, and we're going to be learning how to do this. So here is the about the second stage of my microgreens. Now this will change very, very soon. This is the best microgreens that I've had so far. They don't look right at the moment. When I show you the process that it took for me to get here, y'all, this is amazing. These are going to be the best microgreens I have grown yet. I've had a very good teacher myself, and I am able to teach you as well. So this is what we have so far. These are under light, just as they should be, and I am looking forward to this. So that's the next step. And I'm going to teach you how to do sprouts two ways. Well, I don't do the one with the jar, but I'm going to show you another way. Now these are made with microgreen trays, and when I get to this class, I will show you everything that I have and the best way to do this. I have prayed over this decision on what is the best way to teach everybody. We can always talk about grow your own. We can always say we need to do this or do that, but then there comes the fact is, well, what do I do? How do I do this? What do I do with it after the fact? And that's where I decided. I sat down. I had 3 days to sit down on how I want to take this homestead this year. And for every question, I'm listening, y'all. I am absolutely listening to you. So, our future on this homestead, this whole growing season, not only am I teaching you how to grow it, I'm going to teach you how to cook it, teach you how to preserve it, teach you how to eat your microgreens, or show you how to do these things, or I'm going to teach you how to dehydrate or freeze. That is my goal this year. I'm going to teach my family to do what they've wanted to do that just don't know how to do it. I'm going to take the time, the effort, and step by step to teach you everything you need to know all in one homestead. Okay, so You will find in the bulk canning book, it talks about a gentle boil. Let me show you what a gentle boil looks like. It's not a rolling boil. It is boiling, but it is a gentle boil. This is where we want our beans to be sitting for the 30-minute time mark. We're gently boiling this. Alright, I have just a little over 20 minutes to go on our beans. So, while that's happening and everything is coming up to boil that it needs to and whatever, I'm going to show you the equipment you're going to need. You're going to need a ladle. You're going to need a grip to get your jars out of. You do not want to touch this. It is very hot. You're going to use a small container that we're going to put white vinegar in. You're going to need some paper towels. If you are adding salt, you're going to need to have that in your teaspoons or half teaspoons measurements. I will tell you what the bulk canning book says, but remember, I'm not adding no salt. I do my seasoning after the fact. The only thing I do is I can natural, and I do all my seasoning after the fact when I open up my jars. So, also you're going to need something to get, which is a magnet. Your kits, you can get these kits at Walmart. This is a magnet to get your lid out of your hot water without getting burnt, just like so. And then you're going to need this, which measures out your headspace. Also, this part debubbles. I'm almost ready for a new kit. Mine's 6 years old, y'all, so eventually you'd like to get a new one. One last piece that you're going to need is you're going to need a wide funnel. These go inside your jar to put your contents inside of it, which I will show you all of this. So make sure you have all of your equipment ready. I am going to be putting this on top of my cutting board, but I'm also going to keep my jars from hitting anything cold. So I'm going to put a cloth on top of this so that I can rest my jars on top of it and keep them safe from busting. 13 minutes left to go. Now, you're going to also find that when you read the bulk canning book, it tells you to go ahead and fill your jars up to 1-inch headspace with your hot beans. Then add your salt, and then add your hot liquid to 1-inch headspace. I do not do that. I used to, and I don't anymore. I will do maybe 3/4 of that, and the reason for it is, you will see, I still have liquid. When I used to do it to the 1-inch headspace, like it always said, I found that my beans, they were still absorbing my liquid. Hence, I would not have as much. Now this one, although it has liquid, here's part of the reason. Now see, I lost some. You're allowed up to a half of this jar. I wouldn't even go that far personally. If I have that much liquid gone in my jar, I'm going to use it. I'm not going to put that on my shelf. But you will find that you will have liquid absorbed into these beans. That's not necessarily meaning that you just had it siphon out, which means pressure caused it to seep out the lid. No, your beans will still absorb liquid, and it will absorb everything that you have inside your jar. So I'm going to tell you, we are only doing about 3/4 of the way. I want liquid in all of my jars, so I won't add as many beans in my jars. This way I can assure that if my beans are going to get thirsty while they're on my shelf, I'm going to have liquid left over. So you're going to find that that is vitally important as well, and that's what we're going to be doing here, and this is the reason why we're doing that. Okay, y'all, let's get the canning. So now we're going to get our jars, and I am emptying out the hot water that is inside these jars. Like so. Now I'm going to take that funnel I was telling you about. I'm going to add it to my jars. Now I'm keeping my beans hot. I did strain the liquid out of it, but I do want to keep my beans hot. So I'm just gonna, remember, I'm only going 3/4 of the way full on these because they will absorb. And it's good enough, honestly. Once they absorb more, you'll be able to get a good, 1 jar gives me a really good amount of humus. And it'll be about the same thing that I get from the grocery store. Now, anytime I see these hulls I was telling you about, I'm also picking them out. See that? That is what makes your humus not so smooth. That's what I've been pulling out of my jars and from my pot. So when I see these, y'all, I absolutely remove this immediately. And when I go to actually opening up my jar, I will remove them again when it comes time to making my hummus. Same thing I do when I go and do them from the grocery store stuff too. I don't know, those chickpeas though, they're always so hard. These are not as hard, so they make a much creamier basis. So, like I said, I'm only going about 3/4 of the way. I'm not doing the one full 1-inch headspace. And where my mark is, let me put my lid back on my beans. Where my space is, I will show you here. About this point. Now, if you have right here, this would be, I don't know how many this is. Ouch, that's hot. So right about here, there is lines down here. The second line from the top of that mark is where I usually stop. Now, 1-inch headspace. This is where you're going to add your liquid. We want 1 inch, absolutely 1 inch over in each jar of our hot water. So I'm going to take you over here. We're going to fill up our jars. And I know you can't see this. Hang on. And I will do this over there. So I'm going to take this, and yes, I'm using clean water, boiling water in each of my jars. Up into my 1-inch headspace, and then you're going to debubble. Now at this point, you could have added, it's a 1/2 teaspoon of salt per pint, 1 teaspoon of salt per quart, if you wanted to do that. Again, I don't. I add mine after. I want all of my beans. I do all my seasoning. I do everything plain in my jars. Now, I may have to add some more liquid to this. So at this point, I sit and I debubble. Just like this. I want all the bubbles out of my jar, as you see here. Then I'm going to take my 1 inch and I'm going to look. Here's 1 inch, 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. So I'm going to set it at the 1 inch mark right here on my jar at the ridge. And I can see I absolutely need to add some more liquid in each jar. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so when my tip touches that water, I have enough liquid in here. So now I'm going to take each of my lids. I'm going to place them, whoops, no I'm not. And see right there, I would have made a mistake. This is where you clean your rims. If you do not clean this rim, you're going to be sure to have a false seal or no seal whatsoever. I'm glad I caught that. So now I'm going to take a piece of paper towel. I'm dipping mine in some vinegar because vinegar takes and cuts every grease. It cuts it very well, even if you had them on your fingers. And I'm going to take this over each of my jars. I want to clean this off really well. This goes for every canning session. You always want a nice clean rim. Now I can go ahead and put my rings or my lids on the top of my jars. Now, when you go to put your rings on, you only want enough for finger tight, y'all. That is it. You don't want any more than that. You do not have to torque these down. Oof, just finger tight. And we're talking tips of your fingers. Just like that. That's it. No more. Now, we're done. Look how pretty. See how pretty that is? That's amazing. And then we just stick them inside of our canner. And this is what we're going to do for the rest of our jars, y'all. I'm just going to go in here, fill these up, seal them off, stick them in my canner. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of my jars. I will let you know what we had out of 2 pounds. And we will be back to finish this. Okay, y'all. So, the ball canning book says that if you use 2 pounds and a quarter, you should get anywhere from 6 pints to 3 quarts. We actually, now mind you, we did not fill these all the way either, but we got 9 pints of chickpeas. So now these are filled and ready to go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add our lid. I'm going to take, I have an arrow on this end, and I'm going to have to move this up just a little bit here so for you. Sorry, y'all. So right over here I have an arrow point, and that directs me onto the arrow that is on my lid. So I will measure that up with it. Now, at that point, I am going to seal my pot. I am going to go ahead and let this come up to a steam. What I'm looking for is this port right here. Let me see if I can bring it. This piece right here. This is where that rocker piece sits on. This, I'm going to watch for it to have a slow, steady steam. Once that does that, we're going to set this for 10 minutes. That's what we're looking for at this moment. I want a slow, steady stream. We're not doing anything but watching for that, and then we're going to set it for 10 minutes and we will come back. Okay, y'all, I don't know if you can see that steam, but it's steady. Now we're going to set this timer for 10 minutes. Okay, my family, so now our timer just went off. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to take this stopper right here very gently over the top. Face it away from you and do this kind of quickly because you don't want to get burned. I'm just going to place this on top. Now this stopper came up. This is going to keep and hold the pressure. Now I'm going to wait till this mark gets up to 10. Once it gets between 10 and 11, I'm going to want to hold it there for 75 minutes. That can be tricky. This is where the babysitting part comes in. Please do not leave your canner alone very long. And I mean that because it can change in a heartbeat. Again, I have older videos that have stated this, but if you get to this point and you weren't paying attention and it dropped below, you're going to have to start this all over again. So if you were in 30 minutes of your 75 already in, and you left your canner and it dropped, you're going to have to reset your timer back for 75 minutes and bring that back up. And that's, to me, I'd rather babysit it. The other alternative is it can start going so high and you're going to blow that top. or that little safety button back here. So watch it. You do not want to go too high. I have had it go to 12 and it'd be alright. I just turn my heat and fluctuate it. So as you can see, the timer is now going up. I'm going to get mine between 10 and 11 and we're going to hold it there. Okay, another rule of thumb. Now as you see, we're starting to climb. I have yet to touch this dial, but I'm going to show you something with this. Alright y'all, so when you do this, it's to prevent siphoning. Siphoning occurs when you adjust your temperature way too quickly. So what do? I start taking this at this point slowly. I'll do it halfway points and start lowering my heat. Your pressure isn't due basically by heat. It's due by pressure. It could be sitting on 1 and low as long as you keep that pressure point where it needs to be. So I'm watching this climb, so I'm going to start decreasing mine. As I'm just going to keep watching it. I'm going to start decreasing it half intervals at a time. I do not want to adjust my temperature too quickly. Okay y'all, as you can see, I'm right at my 10 mark. Now between there and 12, I want to start holding this for an hour and 15 minutes, which is 75 minutes. Now that I've reached that point, it's time to hit the timer. Now, 75 minutes from now, we will come back. This is when I want to make sure that I keep this no higher than 12, no lower than 10. Okay y'all, so our timer has gone off, and I had something earlier, and as what I told you, if you lose track of that just by a second, you'll have to start over. First time in 6 years I had to start over. So I'm hoping I didn't ruin this batch. But I'm going to take it as it is. It's only used for hummus at this point. So we just now turn this off. So now we're going to let this come down from pressure. You want it to completely come off into a 0 point and this stopper to drop on its own before we do anything else. Alright y'all, so our pressure gauge came to 0. This stopper dropped. Now we're going to leave this sit for 10 minutes. We're not going to touch it. We're not going to open it or nothing. After 10 minutes, I will then remove this stopper over here. Okay y'all, so our canning session is now complete. Now we're going to pull these out and we're going to set these up in a place where they're just going to sit for 24 hours and not be touched. So we're going to pull these out of our canner. Very gently, and there you have it. There's our chickpeas, y'all. This is what I'll be using for hummus. I hope you enjoyed this canning session. I'm hoping it helped you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. So far these are sealing, y'all. I don't see much in siphoning actually. Yeah, I did have one. So see here, this is what I said I don't like. This one did siphon on me, so what I'm going to end up doing is refrigerating this one, and I'll probably make hummus out of it. I don't like to put anything in my pantry that does that. So I have another one right here. So we're going to be doing this over. I think part of that came with I had trouble with the family earlier, and I got sidetracked and lost my pressure. So it's alright. I'll redo these. I have some more. I need these on my shelf. So this is what happens. And so this is what I said. Try not to, y'all. Even I've been doing this for 6 years, and even I have a mishap. So that was mine. So I guess we'll be having some hummus really quick. So until next time, much love to y'all. I thank you for walking through this with me. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, and I will try to help you the best way I can. Until next time, much love from Parton's Heritage Homestead.